Has depression become more common in recent times, or people have just become more aware? To quote the Unabomber, imagine a society that subjects people to conditions that make them terribly unhappy, then gives them the drugs to take away their unhappiness. It is already happening to some extent in our own society. Instead of removing the conditions that make people depressed, modern society gives them antidepressant drugs. In effect, antidepressants are a means of modifying an individual's internal state in such a way as to enable him to tolerate social conditions that he would otherwise find intolerable. I think people didn't even consider depression in the past. My grandfather was a miserable, abusive drunk according to accounts. He was a machinist in his industrial NJ who died in the early 1960s. He likely did not even consider his mental condition and was just one of many miserable guys who worked and got fucked up all the time. It is what it is much less effective in today's socio-economic climate than it was 30 years ago. I think more aware. It's easy to look back at historical figures and play armchair psychiatrist and say, yeah, Van Gogh was bipolar. Or that Hemingway was the same. Where 100 years ago people were just brooding, melancholy, or sad. What a great question. I think we have higher expectations for personal fulfillment nowadays, as well as more complicated and isolated lives. So both. It's better diagnosed and less stigmatized. Probably both. People were depressed in the past just as today. We just used different names. Melancholia has been around since ancient Greece. There are three aspects of this, and all three can be true. We are more aware of oneself and others. People throw around the word depression as it were candy and not actually being depressed. The society actually triggers more anxiety and depression. It's a bit of both. People are more aware of it, and we can most certainly track and report it more. I think you should also consider that people might have more of a reason to be depressed today. I've been through my own mental health struggles, so I just want you to ponder this. I want to make clear, I view depression as not the opposite of being happy. You can be unhappy but not depressed. Depression is that state when you just can't take action. Life has beaten you. There is no hope. 1. Older social institutions laws can help buffer depression. Things like marriage is for life, so at least you still have your kids. Again, I'm not saying that being in an unhappy marriage can't lead to depression, but understand the gravity of things like just being unhappy with your spouse vs losing your kids and feeling you can't do anything to change it. You also had more fixed rules on what you should not do. 2. Lack of resilience. People in the past were simply more resilient. You have no idea what you're capable of until you are pushed. Since they were often pushed harder, they might have had a lot of other issues, anger, violence, but they might have been less likely to be depressed. I don't know if it's become more common. I think more people now know what depression is, as well as being more comfortable being open about their struggles. A bit of both, I would say. Probably both. There are more things to be depressed about. People are socially isolated due to many factors, including the design of our cities, the fact you can do little that doesn't require spending money, and social media dehumanizing the human experience. People cannot afford housing or food. Everything has become commoditized, including relationships. Working hard doesn't afford you a basic living like housing and food, let alone having a family or participating in community. No amount of therapy or pill can cure an ill societal structure. No personal treatment can change the fact we are facing possible extinction due to climate change. We're experiencing late-stage capitalism. Alienation and depression are normal and rational emotional responses to the predicament we are in. Both. I think it's both. The awareness is causing depression. Yes. Both, but mostly depression has become more common. I believe people from 100 years ago had less to do: TV, phones, modern technology, and it required them to focus on themselves as an individual. People now grow up with so many distractions that they become depressed, having to do the necessities of life. My ex-grandparents thought my ex was handicapped. BC, they didn't know that depressed and sad were two different things. There are PPL who live in this world of whom have never heard or seen someone who is depressed, and it honestly shocks me. Yes, it's becoming incredibly common. I read something years ago, don't ask me where, that said human brains are only designed to know about 100 people over the course of their life and take in new information, news only occasionally, and mostly about local happenings. Whether this is totally true or not, it makes sense to me. The internet has made it so you can literally access information about any place on earth at any time, are constantly inundated with news, and it gives you the sense that you know thousands of people and must know what's happening in their lives all the time. The noise never stops. I think this has a big something to do with it.